Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. Jim, thank you for making the time. My name is Reuben Ogbonna. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Marcy Lab School based in Brooklyn, New York. The Marcy Lab School is here to solve what we feel like is one of the most pressing problems in our country today, which is meaningful pathways to employment and careers for young adults of all ages, but particularly those that we work with are ages 18 to 24 and looking for their first job. We
Hmm.
founded the organization after having a background as public school teachers, high school teachers and principals, myself and my co-founder Maya. And we saw all too often that students were working incredibly hard, achieving incredible things in high school, only to be able to get into college and not be able to afford it. The student loan debt crisis is real. And then one of the other things that people don't talk about is that not all colleges are created equally. And so there are a number of colleges that are affordable, but don't have a strong track record of helping students launch meaningful careers after they graduate. And so the Marcy Lab School is an alternative to college built for this 21st century and AI-enabled world. It's a one-year full-time fellowship. It's tuition free thanks to a number of corporate sponsors and private supporters of our work. And students study with us in order to launch full-time careers in the tech sector.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That is very impressive, which is why we're talking today. Now, what inspired all of this? Was it your background as a teacher or a dean or a coach? What was the spark that got you to say, you know what, I got to do something?
Yeah, there were two students in particular in one of the last jobs that I worked in as in public schools was a dean, like essentially like an assistant principal for a high school, and this
Hmm.
was an incredible high school, one of the top performing high schools in Brooklyn. It's called Coney Island Prep, and our mission is to ensure that all of our students at the time got into a four-year college after they graduated from our school. An admirable mission and one that required a lot of effort and hustle from our team and our students. There are two students in particular who, in many ways, often think about as like a catalyst point for the Marcy Lab School. They represent, I think, students across the country, incredibly hardworking, looking to be the first in their families to go to college, worked their entire high school career to get into the college of their dreams. They both got into the same college, an incredible college with a great reputation. Both of them got partial scholarships, but left somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000 per year in debt to cover the gap. Those two students made two different decisions. One decided to pursue that college of her dreams, taking out that student loan debt. The other decided to forego her dream college and instead go to a lower cost college closer to home. Both ended up with really subpar experiences. The one who decided to take out debt ended up having to leave college because after a while it just got financially unsustainable. And of course, when you leave college without your degree, there's no money back refunds. So you have debt with no more career options than you had when you first got there. The other student who decided to go to the lower cost college found out again that not all colleges are created equally. She had big ambitions for herself in her career, but oftentimes found herself in classes that were overpacked, professors that didn't know her name, no access to a career center that can help her find an internship or a pathway to a career. And so she decided to leave school because she felt like she was there aimlessly. And any other circumstances, if they were coming from families that had the ability to pay for them to go to school without a financial burden, they would be in a completely different circumstance. And it feels unfair that that is how our education system is structured.
Sure, sure, sure. Um, what do you say to people who say, um, or to employers who see very interesting resumes in front of them, but they see Harvard or Yale or Wharton or even Morehouse on one resume,
Yeah,
and they don't see a four-year degree on another resume.
yeah,
And I know that tendency for them would be to lean towards the person who has a four-year degree, for better or worse.
100%.
Why do you think that is? Do you see a shift happening away from that, hopefully?
Yeah. Well, we want to be a part of bringing about a shift where, students, yes, college will always be a great option for a number of students, but we also want to be about being a part of bringing about a shift where your skills and your demonstrated background and experience in the role that you're looking to apply for also can open the door. An important fact is that the Marcy Lab School graduate students in 1 year, our average salary for our students' first job is a little over $100,000 per year. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, our average student graduates at age 21 and a half because they have spent a year or two before Marcy, either, working or, in college for a year or two. But after our 1 year program, they're launching careers that allow them to build wealth for themselves. We work with companies like Spotify and New York Times and JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Google and Amazon. And our students are working alongside college graduates from some of the most elite colleges in the country. And that isn't because we have selected the top 1% of the 1% by application rate, but it's because we've selected students who have a ton of work ethic, a ton of hunger, a ton of drive, a ton of potential. And most importantly, we work with employers to ensure that our training is directly relevant to the roles that we're helping them apply for. And so we
Very good.
believe that, yeah. So we believe that's our job. To your point, like we know that if our students just simply apply for a job without a college at the top of their resume, it's going to be hard for them to stand out amongst the crowd. And so we bring employers in from the very beginning, one, to advise on curriculum, to mentor and volunteer for our program, and most importantly, to commit to simply interviewing students for the roles that we are targeting. And we ask that if our students perform on par, or most importantly, better than their peers from college, we ask them to hire them as such and pay them equivalently.
I like that. I like that. So many times people they have these 4 year degrees, but they have them they've taken classes to get these degrees that have no job related
Yeah.
advantage. Being facetious, but underwater basket weaving, for example. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you take all these classes to get these fancy titles, and then nobody wants to hire you based on that. I noticed that Marcy does something a little bit different. Now, you teach the technical skills for sure,
That's
but I
right.
also saw that you teach leadership, identity, communication, financial literacy. Why is that combination important for employers, you feel?
Yeah, 100%. I think what we are trying to do is kind of decompose the traditional college experience,
Mm,
put aside those things that are maybe no longer have a place in today's economy or simply aren't relevant or applicable to today's world, and really double down on the things that do work. We think, particularly in an AI-enabled economy today, like your ability to communicate, to collaborate with other people, to understand what the problem is so that you're designing a solution that's meant to meet someone's need. Like all of those things can be recreated in a school like a classroom like environment. But if you think about most traditional college experiences, like when you close your eyes and envision a young person in college, you probably think about them sitting in a lecture hall with 200 other people. If you were to walk into the Marcy Lab School, you would most often see students working in groups of threes or fours, building real things, using technologies that our employer partners are using on the job. And so it's not necessarily always about a one-to-one skills match. Yes, we're really, intent upon making sure that the things that we teach are relevant, but we're going to employers and saying, like, what does it take for someone to onboard into a team well? Those folks who get promoted and those folks who stay, besides the technical content, what is it about their way of working that allows them to succeed in the company? And then can we recreate classroom experiences to get them exposure to that?
nice. I really like that. I really do. Um, I know that a lot of recruiters, companies, they often say they want diverse pipelines,
Yeah.
but they still rely on the same schools and the same signals. Now, where's the disconnect, you think?
Yeah, I can, one, I think companies and recruiters that can acknowledge that like diverse teams make better teams and diverse teams can create products that serve more diverse audiences and customer bases. Like it's not only good for our communities and our world, but I think most people who have been a part of diverse teams knows that it's good for business. And we want to be a part of helping companies reach their goals and partnering closely with them to do that. Um, to your point, like it's one thing to have an intent. It's another thing
Hmm.
to have a strategy that can help you meet that intent. And it was really interesting in our first couple of years to see how companies really found value in partnering with Marcy. If you want to build a diverse technical team, whether that be data analysts or software engineers, most people tend to go to the same pools that everyone fishes at. And you're competing against all the big names for the same amount of talent. And the reality is, our higher education system has not done a very strong job of ensuring that um, technical technical majors and technical disciplines are reflective of the wider country. And so not only are you competing in a small pool, but you're competing for a smaller number of people. And so what we've done is we've gone out to diverse communities and we've exposed them to the technology sector and what's possible for them in that career path. There are a number of ingenious, like curious young people who are builders by nature, who are entrepreneurial by nature, who are creative by nature, who love mathematics and science, and haven't necessarily been exposed to like some of these niche but important technical disciplines, like systems engineering and data ops and infrastructure. And we've helped them see the connection between their skills and ways that they can use those skills to make money. And what I'd say is that companies, if they are willing to put in a little bit of extra work, can find a ton of benefit by partnering with non-traditional pipelines that have
Hmm.
closer ties with the communities that they're trying to find.
Nice. I know I like what you said about how your students work in small groups, two or three or so, because that really helps them with networking on
Hmm.
down the road. You know, the job seekers are often told to network, but I think a lot of young people don't inherit professional networks, of course. So I like how you're helping students build that social capital,
That's right.
um, for sure, for sure. What role do you think recruiters should play in expanding access to opportunity beyond traditional college recruiting?
Yeah. I think recruiters play an incredibly important role. The Marcy Lab School was founded in 2019, and in less than 7 years old, we've been able to help nearly 300 young people launch careers, not just in New York City, but across the country in cities like San Francisco and Atlanta and Charlotte, North Carolina, to Des Moines, Iowa, even.
Hmm.
And each one of those partnerships with companies from, the Fortune 500 to startups to social enterprises, they started with a recruiter who was willing to say, you know what, let me take a chance on a non-traditional candidate and allow them to simply enter my pipeline. It's just about opening a door. And what happens is what we often find is that, you can imagine being a young person who, you know, has worked incredibly hard, but hasn't necessarily had a ton of doors open to you. That first person who opens that door, like that, the sense of like drive and hunger is something that honestly can't be matched by someone
Sure.
who just kind of has had everything handed to them. And those people not only become great, contributors to your team, but they become like great ambassadors to your company. And we have been able to, work with those recruiters to make sure that like the impacts of their efforts are recognized too. So um, I would say it's simply about opening the door, being willing to have that conversation with a community organization, and it's not even just about non-college. It could be a college that isn't typically on your recruiting trail. Um, Simply opening the door can have a long tail of effects.
Very good. Very good. As you were saying that, I was thinking about AI's impact on the world of work and how a lot of anxiety has been around it and how the story has been shifting so much over the past few years. First, it was a general anxiety across the board. AI is going to take all the jobs away. A lot of people are panicky. And then quite recently, you have Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, come out and say, well, AI is producing more jobs. He doesn't think it's going to be the destructive tornado that everyone's been pushing. And he actually said something that I picked up on a while ago, how a lot of companies are just using AI as an excuse to lay people off. That they were going to lay them off anyway, but if they can blame it on AI,
That's right.
then their shareholders would appreciate them a bit more. All that to say, it's a very anxiety-filled job market right now for a lot of college students in general entering into the workforce. How are you preparing them emotionally to find work in this kind of atmosphere right now? Just curious.
It's such a great question, Jim. Thank you for asking it.
Yeah.
And first, I tend to agree. I think no one knows exactly what's happening right now in the world because so much change is taking place. And so I think it
Yeah.
takes, a lot of humility just to know that we're in uncharted territory. And at the same time, there are some things, and I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and I feel like you've been able to raise up for people some of the things that just don't make a lot of sense. To your point. or maybe Sam Altman's point, a lot of the job displacement, a lot of the early career talent apocalypse, a lot of the layoffs that are taking place, one, they began taking place before ChatGPT 3 came out.
Yep.
Two, like with an economy that looks like this, with a world and a war and all the things, like we've seen this happen before. And
Hmm.
to your point, we just so happen to be living in an environment where that behavior gets rewarded if you can say it's because of AI. So, yes, there's a lot of disruption that's going to take place. It happens with every technological revolution, but it's important that we don't just immediately jump to the worst case scenario. And the reason why I say that, Jim, is because there also is a world that you can imagine where this new technological revolution creates a ton of new job opportunities.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I think about like what's a shame about the coincidence that this inflection point in AI is happening at this particular moment in the world and the economy is that the conversation has been driven around job displacement. But you can imagine a different world where if it were easier for startups to raise money, if it were easier for nonprofits to raise money, if the economy was a lot more certain, people would be taking this time now to say, well, I have a tool. One way of thinking about it is this tool can displace people. Another way of thinking about it, a more realistic way of thinking about it, at least right now, is that this tool can enhance people's productivity. So I'm now going to
Hmm.
invest in innovation. I'm going to invest in new business lines. I'm going to invest in new products, and I'm going to hire people to help me do that. And so I think about the world where software is just going to continue to explode, and we're going to need a lot of people to help individuals and businesses create, leverage, improve, make the most of software. And right now we're in a conversation where I think we're scaring off a lot of young people from entering into the technology sector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understandably so. I think about in 1999 and 2000 and 2001 when the dot-com bubble burst and all of the people who were scared off of technology.
Yeah.
We look up
Hmm.
10 years later and we say, oh, we missed an opportunity to be at the ground of something. So
Hmm.
anyways, it's connected to the mission of the Marcy Lab School to make sure that like even though things are uncertain right now, we want to be on the ground as this new technological revolution is taking shape. And going back to your question, how do we support our fellows in the meantime? One, it's about doing everything we can to help them find employment right now because there are opportunities. They are fewer and farther between. They're more competitive. They often are not in the same exact sectors we were placing people into in 2022, but they're there. And so we have to help people think more expansively, our young people think more expansively about where you can kick off your career in technology and your first job being the first step to a long career that can have a lot of different twists and turns. And the second
Yeah.
thing is our program invests a lot in supporting our fellows, say emotionally, personally, and even financially. We have each fellow has a coach that they meet with on a weekly basis to not just support their development as professionals, but also to understand what's going on at home and in life, and then if we can connect them with resources. Our fellows receive stipends, intensive job search support, and all of that just to kind of keep them going on what we know will be like a harder job search process than in previous years.
Very good. Very good. As you're saying that, I was thinking of so many different perspectives around AI and students entering into work. And it's like three blind men describing an elephant, if you know that
Yeah,
metaphor. Right. So one guy is from one perspective, you have what I call the blockbuster Netflix analogy. Right. At one point, everybody walked into a video store to rent videos, then Netflix came along, and then now you can all stream all your videos on TV. You don't have to actually go to a store. And at one point, people were saying Netflix was a flash in the pan. It's not gonna last. But of course, it did, and now Blockbuster is gone. Then I think of another perspective where people have said, well, we have AI in the office, but now we're doing even more work because the expectation of the management is you got these tools that can do all these wonderful things. Great. Now you can do even more work, which means they have to hire more people because these people are getting burned out. So it's that perspective. And then another very real perspective from a pal of mine was talking to me earlier today. They have coded a lot of their product with AI, but then something went wrong and they had maybe one person who actually knew how to code and fix it, but he was on vacation. So they kept going back to AI, saying, how do you fix this? But unless you know somebody who really, really knows how to do it,
yeah,
you can't really manage the process. because you're relying on something else, which could be wrong because AI hallucinates.
Yeah.
So many different ways of looking at this. I think it's myopic to say it can only impact one particular way.
Right.
So many different things are out there. And I think it's to your students' advantage that they actually know what's going on. They can actually fix it by hand because if something goes wrong, you actually need someone who knows what's happening and can
Yeah.
actually fix it. So,
Yeah, no, it's right. Those are all three just really real and telling examples.
mhm,
And to your point about the benefit of students who come from backgrounds like ours and programs like ours, they're a bit more kind of AI enabled, AI native from the start. And it's going to take, especially large enterprises, it's going to take them a while to transition to this new way of working, this new technology. And you're going to need people who are coming in with a different orientation to these tools. I was just meeting with one of our employer partners, a very large insurance company that has a very kind of forward-thinking CTO. And I would say they're probably one of the most advanced technical organizations inside of an insurance company, just given how regulated that industry is.
sure.
But they are AI driven throughout and are like at the forefront of a lot of transition as far as enterprise AI adoption. And I was talking to him, but they track kind of AI token usage across their team and they map that against productivity. And so you can imagine AI token usage on one axis and
Hmm.
productivity on another. And the person who is the kind of upper right hand quadrant of that graph, the person who is like the single biggest AI token user and by token most efficient, is one of the youngest people on the team who graduated from college 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and like in some ways that doesn't surprise me. It's like you can, someone who has been able to kick, like, this person kicked off their career, at the launch of, with ChatGPT 3 or 4, I can't remember which one.
Sure.
Like this is what they know. And so um, it's interesting to see that leadership in this transition, in some cases, is coming from folks who are a bit younger, who are coming from different backgrounds. And, I hope that graduates of our program and, other non-traditional pathways can be a key part of helping enterprise organizations transition to this AI native world.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that the Marcy Fellows, they're asked to commit a full time for a year. And I wonder what kind of transformation happens when you have young adults who are given that much structure, that much support, that much of expectation. What kind of transformation happens in the students, I wonder, over the course of a year?
100%. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a core part of what we do. And the one thing that I'd add to that, so that structure, that focus, that direction, and then you infuse on top of that the clarity of what employers are looking for. So on top of that, we know exactly the technologies, the platforms, the tools that we're targeting for these students 365 days from now, and how that can inform the curriculum and programming. What I'd say is, because one of the skeptics questions or views against the Marcy Lab School is that, college is 4 years. Like this is just one. How is it possible that, in one year you can compete with someone who's been studying for 4 years? And look, I'll say that all non-traditional programs have to make trade-offs. All things being equal, if college were better funded from, the federal government in this country, sure, more time would be better. But this is a big opportunity and financial cost for young people. And so we want to make sure that we can make the most of their time. And what I would say is like when I think back to my college experience, most semesters I took 2 or 3 classes a day, spent a lot of time in the different various places to hang out, whether that be the cafeteria, the student lounge. I took a lot of classes that I just kind of needed to take to meet graduation requirements, and they were fun
Sure.
and interesting sometimes, but oftentimes I was just checking the box. I had my underwater basket weaving class or two. And so, as opposed to that kind of 4 year stretched out experience with like varying levels of efficiency, 1 year to really focus and hone in and push, it's like there's a lot of advancement that you can make if you're willing to sprint for a dedicated period of time versus a lot of starts and stops, and especially if
Sure.
that's focused around, what the employment market is looking for. And so, we've just seen time and time again that yes, all things being equal, more time could be better, but a lot can be done in a shorter amount of time, especially if it's focused.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. I'm wondering something else too. with all this focused time. There's been a lot of different news articles and commentary around the entry level job disappearing because a lot of companies, that's another perspective. And a lot of companies are relying on AI, although they're chopping off their leadership pipeline by not training people at entry level in the culture of the company, I feel. Um, but I'm wondering, is that also a gateway to entrepreneurship? Could a lot of your students say to themselves, you know what, I can't get laid off if I start my own business? How pervasive is that mindset among your students, you think?
Now, it's a great question on both points. What's happening with entry level and like what could happen with entrepreneurship. One, I'll say, I think it's a bit of a misnomer that the entry level job is disappearing. I think the what we define as entry level is changing quite a bit.
Mm, okay,
Yeah, like these tools are enabling people to move further, faster, and so entry level people are expected to do a lot more. But in some ways, like that has been happening for generations. Like when I think about just like an entry level person that we hire to work at our school, there no longer exists like an entry level mailroom person at most organizations. An entry level person is just doing data entry or filing. Our entry level people are working in Excel. They're expected to analyze data to put together PowerPoints. They're on like our entry level marketing people are on social media, reaching hundreds and thousands of people. Like
sure.
tools have long since pushed the barrier on what we expect a 22-year-old to be able to do, and I think this is another example of it. One of our interns at this same insurance company, um, there's as you can imagine, just like a number of different forms, state by state, that this insurance company is responsible for intaking and processing, and um, historically has been done through a system of spreadsheets. And this intern built he's only 6 weeks into his internship, a full stack application with a database and a front end portal that like automatically reads handwritten forms, validates inputs, communicates with the team members who are responsible for processing those forms. And by the end of his internship, it's going to be piloted. And that's ridiculous. Like that, that just wouldn't even be an expectation that you could put on a full-time person. But
Right.
that's just what it looks like to be an intern today. And so the bar is rising. But to your point, I also think that means the bar for what an individual can do on their own is rising. And I'm really excited about the possibility of like using this moment to spur more entrepreneurship for our communities. Even just like, yes, the tools and products and companies that people are going to start, but also I think about this company and how they're able to go to their local colleges and, colleges across the country to bring in talent to help them adapt to AI. But all of the small businesses and community organizations across the country, they don't have that luxury. And so, if you're a young person right now and, you have these skill sets and you're AI enabled, you can be building websites and products and like data analysis, for folks in your community. You could be a consulting shop of one and making a lot of money and changing a lot of lives. And so we want to support that as well, too.
Very good. Very good. If a company wanted to partner with Marcy or build something similar, what should they do first?
One, I want you to check us out at marcylabschool.org, and I would love for you to reach out to me directly at Reuben at marcylabschool.org, Reuben at marcylabschool.org.
Very cool. To make it easier, I'll also drop a note in the podcast description. We're running out of time. I thank you so much for yours. I've learned a lot. I'm encouraged to hear a lot of what you're saying because there is a need for change in the educational system, to say the very least.
Thank you for
Thank you so much. Is there any parting words from you before we go?
Oh, no, just thank you for what you do, for the stories that you're lifting up, and for the opportunity to tell ours.
Thank you, sir, for being a guest on the Jim Stroud Podcast. Well, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I'll see you again real soon right here with a brand new episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached by email at jimstroud@jimstroud.com. And one last favor, if I may ask, please rate this podcast. 5 stars is preferred, but please comment with your honest opinion. I really appreciate that. All right? Okay, until next time, bye-bye.